Hello everyone, good morning. Today let's try to understand what are SQL commands. This is a quick guide to DDL, DML, DCL and TCL commands. So what is an SQL? SQL by the definition it is a structured query language. It is a standard language for managing and manipulating relational databases. It's used to communicate with the database and perform tasks like creating tables, inserting data, querying information and setting user permissions. SQL commands are divided into different types based on their function. So in a nutshell, it is basically used to create a structure like to create an entire database using by creating multiple tables and their relationships between the tables, inserting the data, deleting the data, querying the data, and who should query the data, controlling all the data. So this can be done using a certain type of commands, and this entire thing is called as a structured query language. So let's see what are the types of SQL commands. So SQL commands are broadly categorized into four types. Okay, so they are DDL, DML, DCL, and TCL. So DDL is the data definition language. So we're going to go through each one of these in detail in the next slides, but on a high level. So DDL is means the data definition language. DML means data manipulation language. DCL means data control language. TCL means transaction control language. So they are very self-explanatory, but we'll go deep into these type of commands. Okay. So by the definition, DDL means data definition language. So an analogy is like the architects of the database. So what do an architect do? They construct, right? They build everything. So similar to that, these data definition languages, so the commands that are there in this DDL are used to create a structure, create a database structure. So create a schema, so create an objects. So all these things can be done using this data definition language. So if we look at a high level, so there are four different commands that we that come under this DDL, data definition language. Okay, so they are create, alter, drop, and truncate. Create by the name itself, it is used to create new databases, new tables, views, and other objects. Okay, so there are stored procedures, there are functions, tables, many other things are there, right? So we even create constraints on the tables. So all these things can be done using create command from the data definition language. So in some cases, you might want to change the structure of the table, or you might want to add a new field to a given table, right? So in those cases, we use an alter command. So if there's an object already exists, and if you want to modify it, then we use alter command. So if you feel that some object or some table is no longer required, and if you want to delete it completely, then you use drop command. Truncate is kind of removing the data inside the table. It doesn't delete the table, but it will just delete the records that are there in the table. So these are the four types of commands that come under DDL, data definition language. Okay. So moving on, data manipulation language. So manipulation in the sense like we manipulate something, right? We change the data. So there is a change. So how do you change the data? How do you get like you have tables created, you have some data loaded in the tables. Now you want to query it, you want to see it, you want to load some data, you want to update some data, or you want to remove some data. So how do you know like what has been inserted or something? So these are the four commands that you see on the screen are the data man commands, key commands in the data manipulation language. Okay, so select is the first one to retrieve the data from one or more tables. Okay, so basically when we insert some data into the tables and if we want to retrieve it and see what data is available in the table, then we use select command. But in order to s- um, retrieve some data first, we need to insert some data, right? So that's where you go ahead with the insert statement. So when you have an insert statement, you can load the records as many as you want, and that can be queried and retrieved using select command. For suppose if you are looking for updating a data, so it met some condition or something, and you want to change the value to a different value than the previous value that is there in that particular column. So in those cases, you will use update statements. So update commands are the ones which are used to modify the existing records. Okay, Anything, any value that needs to be updated within a table or an entire row, you can update it using update statement. If you feel that the data is no longer required, then you can use delete command and delete the records from the table. So if you remember in the previous slide, we discussed about truncate, right? Truncate is the one which is going to remove the entire set of records, whereas delete has an option. So you can delete selective number of selective records based on a based on a condition. Okay, for suppose if you want to delete um, rows that have the department 10 or something, so you can do it using delete. Whereas if you do a truncate on the table, it will delete the entire set of records irrespective what logic or what condition you have. Okay, so be careful when we are using DMLs and DDLs. Okay, so the data control language. So the basic purpose, these are kind of, as the name states, the security guards. So basically, you don't want everyone to access your DB, right? So if you, if everybody's aware. So if we let everyone have access on the access to the DB, so the somebody might try to change the data, or somebody manipulate the data, and if you want, like even though they are not supposed to, they might change it. So right, so if you want to restrict the access, like for a given user, if you want them to just look at the data but not manipulate anything, then you can give those specific rights using this grant statement. And if you want to revoke somebody's permission, then you will use revoke permission, revoke statement. Okay, so these are the two DCL commands. Then comes the transaction control language. So the transaction controllers are basically used to manage the transactions within a database. So we will speak about asset properties in the next video, but for now you can think like a transaction is like a you can take an analogy of a bank transaction. So when you make an online payment, there are only two states, right? Either it can get uh, successful or it will be a failure. There won't be anything like it will be in a pending state, right? So either the transaction can be successful or a failure. So similar to that, even in the SQL also, when you are loading the data or when you are manipulating the data or when you are dropping the data, so in any of these cases, it will be treated as a transaction. So whichever operation you are doing, it is a transaction. So if you want to commit a transaction, like after making a change, you want to commit it to the database. That means that save it till that point. So that's when the transaction gets saved. Like once you hit the commit command, then it will get saved permanently to the database. But if at all you want to revert back to the previous state, then you will be using a rollback. So there's another thing called save point, which you can create in the which you can later roll back. It's just like a milestone point. Like you can create a save point, and if at all, and at some point of time you feel like something got corrupted or something has changed, which you do not want to, then you can revert back to your save point. So this is all about transaction control. So in the summary, these are the things that we have learned today. So there are four types of SQL commands. One is DDL, TML, DCL, and TCL. So each one of them have some key commands involved. So create, alter, and drop come under the DTL, even truncate come under the data definition languages. Select, insert, update, delete are the data manipulation. Grant and revoke will be under the DCL. Commit and rollback are under TCL. Okay, and save point. Thanks everyone for